in a pretty decent condition, and then occasionally not gonna be there.
I think it's not that big of a complaint. So
Yes,
like I
yes.
was.
So,
Okay. That's it.
look at. Maybe
Um,
really overgrown.
I think he'll be fine. But I don't know if he'll have
Yeah.
a backup person ready to
We were gonna look,
go.
we were gonna look at that area up there because we're looking at doing that.
You might want to do that.
Possibly.
The only reason I think
We'll make sure they get
those two will have
We couldn't fly a drone over that area.
The Jones
it sounds like
the Jones
planning
one
what they're
could
doing at the consulate
probably just maintain a little
and
more.
embassy.
The one that we bring in the most
So
over
it's
the
gonna be a
years.
big deal.
So Shelley gets a good look at the area.
All right. But
You guys ready?
We've gotten that window.
We are now, yes, sir. We're ready now.
They know what we want.
We're ready now.
Guys ready? They're not having as much fun.
Here we go.
Well, hopefully he'll.
That's because we're
It's just an observation.
Whatever, but.
That's because the east side of the
Engage,
Cape
right? Are you ready?
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and call to order. This is city council business meeting for Thursday, August 5th, 2021 at 6 p.m. Lindsay, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Lester,
Here.
Baker,
Here.
Reva,
Yes.
Cool,
Here.
Livingston,
Here.
Mayor Tom Phillips.
I am here too. Thank you for all being here. And next on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance with me?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 3 on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Would anybody like to move any of the consent agenda items to the regular agenda? Hearing none, can I get a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Cool, second by Livingston to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same. And motion carries. Item 4, welcome guests and public comment. Thank you for coming tonight. This would be for non-agenda items to address we'll open up the dais to allow you to address council for non-agenda items. We'll give you a 3-minute time limit. We can't take action on these tonight since they aren't in the agenda. Also, if you'd like to comment on any item in the consent agenda, now would be the time. Anybody like to? No? All righty. Hearing none, we will move on. Item 5 is consent agenda. We have approval of the July 15th, 2021 minutes of the regular city council meeting. There's expenditures, some tax abatements. We have a neighborhood block party application for 603 to 619 Gordon Avenue for August 21st, 2021 from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. A renewal Class C liquor license, Class B wine permit, Class C beer permit, and Sunday sales for Casey's General Store number 2568 at 1510 Sunset Drive. Have a new 5-day Class C liquor license with outdoor service and living quarters for Variety, the Children's Charity of Iowa Stag Event, 7988 Adams Street Cumming, effective 8/26 through 8/30. A resolution approving HR generalist and administration office assistant job descriptions. A resolution approving purchase of computers per replacement schedule. A resolution approving pay estimate number 6 and change order number 1 to Howery Construction for the Great Western Trail Connection Phase 1 project. A resolution setting date of September 2nd, 2021 for public hearing on urban renewal plan amendment. We have a resolution ordering construction of certain public improvements, the Great Western Trail Connection Phase 2 project. Approving final plans and fixing the date for hearing thereon of August 19th, 2021. Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion.
Motion by Cool, second by Reva. Lindsay, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Reva,
Yes.
Cool,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 6 is old and new business for consideration, discussion, and possible action. Item A is resolution approving purchasing policy. So Gene's been working on a purchasing policy with the finance committee and also had input from the auditors. Gene is actually away for a family event tonight, so Luke Nelson is going to handle the discussion.
Thank you, Mayor. In your packet, there was an agenda statement that summarized some of the key items. I apologize, I'll get to the top here. We wanted to make sure that there was an understanding between the difference between budgeted and unbudgeted. Also, the number of 15,000 is what is allowed as a city manager authorization for a purchase. And that's the number that we've been discussing, potentially changing that to a different range. So within the actual policy, you saw a few sections that were highlighted in yellow. That might have looked confusing because there were two numbers and then in parentheses it said current. That was us saying the range that we've discussed has been between 15,000 and 50,000, looking for council to identify what number they would want to plug into those highlighted sections. The competitive bidding, this is primarily handled by the state bidding process, and that's Iowa Code Chapter 26 and 314. Of course, that supersedes any of our own policies, so we always want to make sure that we're following those requirements. So we did actually address that and pull that into our own policy for reference. Purchasing equipment or tangible items is a little bit different than purchasing service-oriented or product purchase related. The things are different. However, in this purchasing policy, we're suggesting that whatever numbers we plug in for those thresholds would be the same for both. If for some reason you want them to be different, we can adjust that. Also wanted to touch on emergency exemptions. There are times where Public Works, Wayne and his staff may have to deal with a water main break in the middle of the night. Maybe they have to have insert valves put in or some kind of a major expense, something that goes beyond the work that our staff can do. We certainly don't want that water main project to have to wait till the next council meeting. That's an example of what might constitute an emergency. And then the budget amendment process is outlined in there as well. Gene and I talked about a question that often comes up from council. What do we see in some of the other metro communities? So we wanted to include those numbers here so that you could see the comparison. I don't know that I would call that consistency. There's certainly is a wide range. So I don't know that that helps you or not, but that was included.
And I would note Pleasant Hill, Waukee, West Des Moines have all had issues with unauthorized spending.
All right, this is a good time to bring up a point. I had one of the council members emailed me and said, Luke, what's your recommendation? And I responded and said, I'm indifferent on this one. On one hand, I can see where this helps us be a little bit more efficient, time frame. If people need to move forward to the purchase, we don't have to wait for a council meeting. I can authorize, for example, if it was up to a larger amount like 50,000. The downside to that is what you just said, it's the risk. So it's really, you've got to weigh out what you feel comfortable with. And I'd like to say I have a recommendation, but I really don't. We'd be happy with that, whatever numbers you decide to plug in. The fact that we're getting this in an entire formal policy that gives guidance to us and allows us to make sure that all of our staff are acting consistently, that's most important to me.
They had improper spending. Did they follow the ordinances that they had anyway?
I don't know the answer to that. I just know that there were criminal investigations.
My point is that we can have all the rules all day long and you still have crime and deceit.
I don't
fraud.
disagree, but the higher the unchecked, and I use that very loosely, the higher the unchecked amount, the more likely it happens and doesn't get caught before a lot of money is spent.
You know, this, maybe, I don't mean to be speaking out of turn because you're doing a presentation, I probably am. But my question to you earlier, and the question I asked down here with the Public Works Director, is this a sufficiently high enough amount of money that we're discussing to be able to conduct operations? What happens if the need is for an item that exceeds whatever number we pick? What's the procedure for handling that? Do you wait 2 weeks until we meet again?
Correct.
Okay, so if he's got something that's an emergency that has to be done, then would this section on emergency situations cover him so that he could execute it if it has to be done in a timely manner, if it goes over the limit?
I use the example of a water main break because I think clearly that one meets this emergency exemption,
Sure, could be a lot of things.
which pretty much means this policy becomes meaningless and the key focus becomes public health, welfare and safety beyond anything else.
My concern is just the opposite. I think what Jackie's voiced, and I understand it, but we've got ways to get whoever it is. If, you know, if they're fraudulent spending. And we've got enough eyes looking at the money that comes and goes. It's gonna be pretty tough to sneak it by, right? So my question is really, what do we need to do to achieve efficiency in the operation? I mean, without being stupid, but achieve an efficiency in the operation. That's where I want to.
Well, think about it this way. Let's just think of an example where somebody does something illegally and we have the number at 50,000 compared to 15,000. So I authorized that number of a $50,000 purchase and it's, I hate to use a bad example. How about a new Harley for Jen? Okay, I authorized that 50,000.
Maybe you do a business owned by your wife. So I'm gonna take it a product. Yeah.
So I was
I'm
looking at
familiar
Jen, I
with it.
picked her out. Sorry, Jen. So anyway, so she goes out and makes that purchase. Even though I've authorized it, that is still going to show up on bills payable.
Right.
It's still something where you would have the chance to see that purchase. Now, the inverse of that, let's say that 15,000 is the limit. And the concept is it's something that we catch easier. That 15,000 would show up on a council agenda and you're going to see, all right, it's 15,000 purchase in this case for Harley Davidson. You would have saw that sooner than after the purchase was actually made.
And I got a feeling that our financial person would probably see it a lot quicker than that. And I bet the bells would be going up.
Unless it's our financial person who's
Yes.
fudging the numbers,
Right.
right? And I'm right, certainly I'm not suspicious of Gene at all, but right, that the people who have the authority are the ones that usually
Right.
embezzle.
But that's also
Or
where we have
misappropriate.
internal controls where it takes more than one person in order to do it. It takes collusion. The
It-
way
it
we have
doesn't.
it set up, it does.
It does.
Well, then if we have a requirement that a department head authorizes it and Gene has to authorize it and Luke authorizes it, why is it? Explain to me how it doesn't.
Can only tell you what the end result of how I get it. And it's not that somebody goes out and buys a Harley and says, hey, I bought a Harley, right? They they pay for things that look like they should be allowed.
That's true.
They spend money and bill it for things that look like they should be allowed. I truly, my opinion about this is on record. I don't need to debate it. I mean, everybody, I think pretty much almost everybody is in agreement to do some kind of higher dollar amount. I don't need to, we don't need to spend time trying to convince me because you're not gonna, and I'm not gonna convince you, and it's just fine. I do have one question kind of off that topic is under emergency exemptions, the way it reads, exemptions to the personal purchasing policy may be granted. By whom? How is it granted? And it may explain that somewhere else, but it doesn't under this section, and I didn't tie it back. I'm not arguing whether or not it should be. I just don't know how is it may be granted by whom and when and how.
We can change,
Good question.
Because I was wondering the same thing when I first read it.
Well,
City
that's
council
after the
has
fact,
to-
right? So how is it I mean, that's right. This is part of my problem. That's after the fact. What am I gonna do? Say no now? Then what do we do, right? Somebody's gotta pay it back? I mean,
Oh, I
that
read
to
that.
me makes,
I read that the city council has to meet and have the resolution and then that authorizes the emergency.
Right.
I read.
well, then that's
It
not an
needs to-
emergency, because if we don't meet until 2 weeks from today and there's a water break tomorrow, then how do we? I mean, right, that doesn't seem to address an
It was-
emergency situation.
I think what you said is accurate, the way that you described it, that it's you accepting that that was an emergency purchase. So it's after the fact,
So it's
you're
a
right.
council
And,
action.
but to
Right,
answer your
so-
question, so how would you address that? Through disciplinary action. And that could be reworded to say that instead of saying granted, it may be addressed at the next council meeting or addressed after, or some type of follow-up.
But I guess my heartburn with that is that we have had a couple discussions over the years where retroactively, we have endorsed what has already been done. Because although we might be able to exert some disciplinary action, it doesn't change the fact that it's already been done when we may not have approved it. And we don't take disciplinary action. We never have. So I just, that to me just doesn't, I don't know.
So do you want-
Really unenforceable.
Would we want to have it where the city manager is the approving authority in an emergency or the mayor?
No, I don't know. I'm maybe, I don't know. I'm not
just
suggesting.
asking.
I'm just, yeah,
What you're more
right.
comfortable with.
But I'm just saying exceptions may be granted suggests that I'm going to find an exception and grant that exception, not that I'm going to endorse it after the fact.
We could change the authorization to something like, in the event a city council quorum is not available, and we're, exception pursuant to policy may be granted by the city manager with approval of the mayor, something like that. I mean, if you're looking for some sort of review prior to.
So the way I read it is a little different, and I read it as exceptions are granted. So the policy is granting the exceptions that are listed. So there's 5 exceptions. That's how I read it. And if you met one of those 5 exceptions, then you were in the emergency authorization. It was granted under the policy.
Okay.
That's how I read it. So I see your
I
side too.
I hear
get
what you're
it.
saying.
And so mine is the 5. It's not all 5. It's one of the
One of the
5
5.
causes.
Any of the following. Okay,
Yeah.
fair. Thank you.
Also the last paragraph in that section, and I'll just read it. In the event that any of these situations occur, purchases of emergency needed items may be made without approvals required by this policy. At the conclusion of the situation, formal documentation will be required by staff participating in the event, outline the occurrence and justify the expenditures made under the emergency exemption. So we could add something there that at that point saying that would then have to be reviewed and approved by council. I mean, that I'm thinking logically that's what would happen, but it's not stated there specifically.
Yeah, that's fine. I appreciate, I see what David's take on it is. That makes more sense to me. I do think we need to change the word granted to exceptions to the purchasing policy may arise,
Shall be allowed.
shall be allowed. Yeah, something like that, because there's not a granting of permission, but these criteria meet the exception.
Right, have to comply
Yes.
with the criteria.
Yes. That makes.
The worst case of that
Just read it the way we see it.
embezzlement that I've ever seen was bogus purchases from straw companies. And it didn't have anything to do with limited dollar amounts because the oversight board was approving them.
Right.
And that's probably the biggest ripoff ever. And the only real way around that stuff is to have an honest staff. And really blessed with an honest staff. And to have as many eyes looking on a signature like you're talking about as you can, right? But you reach a point. Where it's no longer efficient. I mean, you gotta be smart now you set it up.
So before I mentioned that in terms of the policy, I didn't really have a recommendation one way or the other, although I will add a caveat until it comes to public works. Street projects, sewer, water projects, generally speaking, those are just much larger scale purchase and larger projects than the other. So I would say on that side, I would encourage a higher number on the public works side.
We talked last time about those projects generally have to go out for bid and we get to see the contract anyway. So we're approving those expenditures. Or are there instances, so just like road maintenance, you mean just like a general road?
Or are you
maintenance
talking
thing?
about unbudgeted?
I think this probably brings me to a discussion that I had earlier with the Public Works Director. And would you make a comment about
Yeah,
what we were discussing and amounts and how it works and what the different things are that we?
The
you gotta
best-
figure?
if the best example I can give is, I'm trying to look for the agreement here, but recently I brought forward a crack sealing maintenance contract a few months ago. It was a scenario where I think it was just under $50,000, but we called, it's part of our maintenance, it's budgeted, we have street maintenance budgeted. I called the contractor and he said, yeah, I can do it tomorrow. He's ready to go, you know, well then I can't break apart the contract to do 10,000 here, 10,000 there. The way we should be doing is bringing it all forward. 'Cause I'm not trying to avoid the policy. But it wasn't a scenario where I could have waited. I could have waited, right? It wasn't life or death, but it was just an opportunity where he had with the contractor at time to get into it. Most of our contracts that we do for maintenance or patching, they're usually $40,000 to $50,000. We have ones that are bigger than that, but usually those bigger ones are like what you're alluding to. We have more time or there's something more substantial that I'd want to tell you about anyhow. But the patching, maintenance, crack sealing, the smaller projects, they do add up pretty quickly and they're generally more than 15,000.
So would you be comfortable with, say, the $50,000 limit for the top end for you?
We'll make anything work. We've been bringing forward the contracts here the last few months, and we're surviving. It's not the most efficient, you know, I think I would love it if it's 50. I'd be happy if it was 40. Anything's better than what we have, but I said, we'll make it work. We're surviving with it.
Swing up to 1.4, that one. I think that's the piece we need to discuss to talk about some of this, but the line that says all are subject to review by the mayor, is the mayor signing off on these as well? This is me asking a question when it says review by the mayor, or is it you're doing it and then the mayor's just seeing it after the fact with us, or? It's an interesting line to me, that's why I asked.
I asked Jean about that because I noticed that was something that she had added later. And she said that during one of our early discussions about the purchasing policy, I don't remember who, but one of the council members brought up that they felt better if there would be another person, like an additional tertiary person that would then review and authorize those purchases up to 15 or 50,000, whatever the number is.
So I would change it to approved by instead of reviewed by, because review tells me it's happening after the expenditure.
And subject to review doesn't say it's getting reviewed at all. It just says it could be.
Right. In my mind, I think we either say approved by or we get rid of those two lines, but I would feel better. I think the higher the number, that creates an elected person and city manager then approving together something that's in my mind, I'm more comfortable with that than just blanket raising the number and calling it. That makes sense. It makes me feel better. It doesn't necessarily take all.
If the mayor wasn't around, Jim, would it just automatically follow that the mayor pro tem could sign and authorize, or does that have to be mentioned?
Do they want to be called a tenant?
It would, I believe our code allows for the mayor, if the mayor is unavailable, problem is, what's the definition of unavailable?
Yeah.
You know, if he's sleeping, says, don't wake me up.
Well, if he's out in Idaho or something.
If he's out in Idaho or something with the mayor pro tem, that would work. But you know, it's.
So it would just
I'd rather
be-
not have that gray
it would be
area or that
implied.
frequent jumping back for this. We don't have a process that I know of where we frequently will be placing the mayor pro tem working and jumping back and forth, because if I picture if we're gonna be doing this, it's gonna happen quite frequently and probably whenever the mayor leaves, as opposed to being able to clear out 3 days, you know, or a week thinking, okay, I got all my work, I'm all caught up on everything. Well, you won't be because it's expensive.
What I would add to that is just to think through the situation, Mayor, this is probably more for you to think through it, is that if a staff person comes to me with a purchase, generally that comes with an explanation. It's not just, here's the document. It's, hey, here's what I'm moving forward with. So there would be a little bit of time involved with that. It isn't a bad thing.
For me, that makes me more comfortable from the standpoint of you're getting it from the staff member who's, and then if it's something you really don't want to do, this is me telling you, you can blame it on the mayor being the bad person. And I'm just saying it provides an out for you too. But from your standpoint, I would think it would provide you with a second set of eyes to make sure that you were thinking through everything.
Well, and it also gives accountability to the public.
That would be the piece. I would change that wording, and then I'm more comfortable with the higher number. So, and I think that we need to figure out something for specifically road use tax and water sewer. I think those three are the ones that tend to have things that pop up emergency wise, but to me, they would either fall in the emergency line, or hopefully they have enough notice to come to us and say,
So what if you give the city manager a certain number? You may want it to continue to be 15,000. And then anything between 15 and 50. I think.
For budgeted or unbudgeted?
for budgeted.
For budgeted.
Each additional item just makes it a little less efficient, but you also get the less risk for it.
Accountability, it provides some, it provides another check, and then you throw in the payment piece is gonna throw another check. I mean, there's more, you're adding more steps to it, but it also.
So you wouldn't keep it the same for budgeted and unbudgeted?
No, I wouldn't. I would keep them separate.
So what would you look for unbudgeted?
I would say 5 and the 10, so 5, just 1 and 10 together.
Why so low?
If it's not budgeted and it's more than that, then it needs to probably come to us. It's public's money. It's
Well, but
not-
I know, I'm thinking of the type of operation, so public, he can't hardly do anything with. the
Yeah, but those are
equipment.
budgeted
But if they're
items.
either budgeted or they're approved or they're an emergency. I mean, they're either
Right.
budgeted or they're an emergency, and in either of those cases, I think they're taken care of.
Right.
So, I mean, but if it's something, if you have a contractor come to you that has 2 weeks of crack sealing, and instead of paying $80,000, they can do it for 48 for the next 2 weeks because their job got done early and they have the staff and they're paying their staff anyway. I think you at worst, you're calling a special council meeting to get that contractor. I mean, in my mind, that's the worst case scenario.
But see, I don't
It's on
think,
us to have a special council meeting.
I don't think that meets the emergency criteria.
No, it doesn't. That's what I'm saying. At worst, if we can't get to a council meeting, that case, if it's under the limits, 48, it would be okay with the two of them, but at
Yeah,
55, might be something
How
that we have to have a
about for
special
him,
council.
we go with the bigger number, and the bigger numbers approved by the mayor?
I think you pick one number and keep it easier for the staff to remember.
And you're talking about the non-emergency unbudgeted, right?
Non-emergency budgeted. So he had crack sealing budgeted, and it would have fallen in the number
So if
for
he's,
them to do, correct?
so if he gets a call from somebody that he's looking at doing some blacktop, and he gets a call from somebody and they say, hey, look, I know you want us to do that street down here. I can fit it in next week because we had another project drop out on. Can I get down there and do it? And it's a pretty good deal. All right, so he can't do it.
At worst, we're calling a special council meeting to approve it.
What if we can't get enough people? Why can't the mayor say, do it?
Provided, I think that's part of what I'm saying is that we create the levels of adding.
Well,
But
then we
beyond-
better raise that number up a little bit and let him be able to approve it.
I don't,
Your,
if somebody's calling you to do concrete or asphalt, that worries me a little more.
Well, somebody's already scheduling up probably. He just hasn't signed the contract, gonna buy it yet. And the guy says, I can get to it next week. But those things happen.
But 1.3, your itemized list. I would really like to take E out. There is no reason in my mind that education and training costs should exceed anything other than what I just think that that's something, given the attention that's paid to those kinds of things, I think that that's something that should be pretty specific. I don't think that that's something that we should spend $50,000 on with a nod from the mayor. No offense to the mayor. I think if we're spending that kind of money, then it needs to come before city council, because that is the kind of thing that the media gets a hold of and goes nuts over. I think it's pretty easy, right, to plan. You always plan education and training. I think it's pretty easy. That one kind of jumps out at me as there's no reason for it to be in that list.
That's just a list of an example of budgeted
I
expenses. I
understand
get it.
that.
So what we would do then is add education and training to a mandatory item that would have to come to council for authorization, regardless of
If
something
it
being
goes
budgeted.
beyond whatever's budgeted. I'm trying to think of how to,
These are examples. I'll let you-
I mean, I'm trying to think of how to put it in maybe its own category.
Hey, chief, how might that affect your operation?
I know.
But if it goes, if training and education goes over.
the top, I see.
Yeah,
X
that's
amount
what I'm
per person.
saying, is if, right, if we say, okay, up to $50,000. And we say, okay, education and training, it's budgeted, you can go up to $50,000 for 2 people to go to Cancun for some crazy training, right? I mean, that's the kind of thing that none of our staff with poor judgment would say, okay, and then it hits the news and people go crazy. I mean,
Well, maybe the way, because one thing I looked at when I saw this is the number, we talked about 50,000 would cause problems with public works projects, but it would also, it comes up for vehicle purchases. Perhaps we can, what bothered me here was that it just says it's a budgeted purchase, but it doesn't say if it's an amount over the budgeted purchase. So something can be budgeted, but then you're spending more than the budget. So so something more than like a 10% over the budgeted line item, those are the anomalies that need to come. If we're gonna set a dollar amount, I would just like to know if it's budgeted, are we within the budget amount? If we're within the budget amount, I don't care so much. We already talked about that at budget time. The department heads, or trust them to be within the budget. And I had asked for, if we increase these amounts, that there be some kind of more detailed reporting, even if it's to say in the explanatory line that we now have on the expense reports, that this was a budgeted item, it is, less than 10% or is below budgeted or something, to let council know that this $25,000 expense is budgeted, or it's emergency, or if it's budgeted, that it's below or above the budget amount. I want the information so that in 2 weeks, every 2 weeks we see this, that will be my like. And really, it should only be 1 week, because we get the council packets the Friday before, and then we have time to look at things.
So you're saying in the report that's submitted, the bills payable report, you'd like to see essentially a descriptor to say, was this budgeted, non-budgeted, or an emergency purchase?
And Jean has set that up, because I keep calling her whenever I see expenses. So what is this $6,000 expense? Because what is that? So she, I think, has added the capability now, a line item that you can put in the descriptor of what that expense is. So for these large things, it would just be nice, for Jean's sake, if nothing else, that, we don't all call Jean and say, so what is this $25,000 thing? Was it within budget? What was it? I didn't really expect a separate report, but I want the information. I want to be very transparent. So anybody, the public can look at our expenses and see what's going on. That's not gonna stop somebody who's, dead set on embezzling, but it's certainly a hurdle,
Right.
You want to make it
Think about it.
inconvenient.
And easier for us to catch. I mean, to me, it's two things, right? I want it to be difficult to do it, but also easier for us to see it.
I mean, if I saw, $40,000 crack and seal add-on for project whatever per budget, because it's budgeted in road maintenance, I'd be fine. It's fine.
My concern is when we start spending that money on budgeted items, which then requires some other budgeted item to have to be a special expense because we spent the money that we budgeted for it in this budgeted item.
Right.
We're not there. We haven't been doing that as far as I understand, but that's my concern about how that all, well, yeah. So anyway,
For the,
so I can live with, I agree with Stephanie's request in terms of those expenses and how the list and whatever.
so the education and training costs, so there was discussion of pulling that out of that section.
It's fine.
Okay, so that can stay there, but that detail or the
Yes.
explanation, okay,
So,
gotcha.
so do we want to say plus or minus, like if it's greater than 10% over budget, then it needs to come to council, or does it matter? I mean, do we want to set a number like that, or just?
That gets into the memory issues.
I know.
What was it, 50 or 10%?
But if it's, we could put it in here and just follow it,
Yeah.
but if it's over what was budgeted, then it's non-budgeted, it would have to come to council.
Right, but if a department has $15,000 to pay for staff training, I would expect, sort of like Jackie's saying, that would be several conferences for different staff. It wouldn't be $15,000 for one person to go on some incredible training experience somewhere. And so I don't know how to fix that.
Well, and I'm trying to think through, because at budget time, whenever they've had I'm just thinking through the conferences and education line usually gets some note or the department head talks about. I just know that in the past, or if it's gone up from what they've done the prior year, I know the department has been pretty
Highlighted
good
it.
about
Yeah.
saying that that's why, or.
Right, I agree.
And she's, Jean is included in there, for example, if we know there's a Kosovo trip, how many people, hey, 3 people, 2 people to DC. Generally, those are put in there as a description in the budget.
Right.
I'm not gonna say that's everywhere. I don't know that, for example, Public Works says 3 water certification trainings to.
Right.
But that may be also just part of our budgeting process, which, David, you brought that up before. It's a little bit
She's
more
told me
detailed.
that she's got a different report or something that she's bringing forward this next time that'll have a little more details, so.
So we good with 1.3?
Yes.
Let's go back to 1.4.
So I kind of like David's idea that we set a threshold that can be authorized by the city manager. And then if it's higher than that, it needs to be authorized by 2 people. And I would propose that the language say authorized by, right, city manager and mayor, or in the mayor's absence, mayor pro tem, so that it's addressed. And absence being, I can't get a hold of it, whatever the absence, right? The broadest sense of absence.
I like that. I like that too.
I did not get it all. I'm sorry.
So I was making notes on the threshold, so no, I apologize.
So if we use these numbers, right? So over 15,000, whatever the number is, can be authorized by the city manager. Up to,
Instead of city council.
I
Authorized by city manager.
know that's what it says, but
Right.
I'm saying if it's over 15,000 or whatever number, right? I'm just using that
Okay.
number for now. over 15,000, it can be for a budgeted item, it can be authorized by the city manager
Up to.
up to,
Yeah.
I don't know, 40, 50, whatever number we decide, we'll use 50 for sake of argument, up to 50,000, then it has to be authored or also authorized by the mayor or mayor pro tem in the mayor's absence. And then anything over, again, I'm just saying numbers, I'm not proposing them, over 70 has to be brought before city council. So some kind of a structured progression, and 70 is too high, but or maybe y'all don't think so, I do, but in any event, that kind of structure is what I propose.
That makes
To remove
sense.
the all are subject to review by the mayor quotations.
Yeah.
To
Well, that's,
remove
so
that.
far this, yes, so far this is just budgeted purchases, and yes, remove that parentheses. So then what,
And there'd be
what are
an
the
A.
numbers?
Then there'd be an A there that says,
Up to 15,000.
Is
No.
department purchase budgeted?
Over 15,000 to.
Or
X
whatever would require two.
Requires one. Over 15 to X requires one. Over X to XX requires two.
I think the first one
Yeah,
needs to be
city
up
manager.
to whatever. So up
So
to
the first
whatever,
one.
up to 15 stays the same where it's just city manager. City manager.
Department head.
Department head.
I think department head, and then
Okay.
at between 15 and, I don't know, we want to say, well, so.
30, how about
How
15,
about
30,
30?
50?
15 to 30 for city manager, 30 to 50, two people, over 50, city council. Going once, going twice.
Okay, actually, those numbers sound pretty good.
I can live with those.
It doesn't fix it, but
going to
we're
take
not
that.
dealing with Wayne yet.
Okay, we're not
Wayne, what do
dealing
you-
with them.
Yeah,
yet.
I
We're
think
just
we
dealing with
need
the
to
city
do-
manager.
But that would have gotten the
But
crack
the
ceiling
department
thing could have been in this.
No, that
There's
does
no
deal.
prices.
There.
Right,
Because he's
that's
a
a-
department.
We're
We're
gonna
gonna
read
I'll
read
give both
that.
signatures if you need it.
Is that better? Does it get you closer to feeling?
Because you gotta go get, you gotta go get his approval.
This
These would
is
be
budgeted.
Yes.
Okay.
So this counts, this is the crack ceiling or whatever, right? It's already budgeted, but it's more money. So now,
So the crack ceiling that was 48, whatever, could have gone to Luke and Mayor, and you two could have signed off on it
they
and
done.
been done.
Up to 50.
Up to 50.
Yeah, so 15 to 30.
He's just
Does
glad
that
it's
work?
not 15, let's be honest, okay?
Does that work in public works world? Is that
We can make it work.
improvement or not?
I know you can make it work.
do we want to have a separate category for,
I don't.
for road use
I
tax?
don't.
I don't. I would rather adjust the numbers
Okay.
than have a separate category.
No, I actually.
I like that too. I don't want to.
Okay.
Department heads are all responsible.
Okay, so those are for budgeted purchases. How about non-budgeted purchases? And saying up to 10,000 is authorized by city manager, up to 25 by city manager and mayor or mayor pro tem. Not that high.
Not for
unbudgeted.
non-budgeted.
Not budgeted.
Okay.
No, non-budgeted, I would tell you, this is department heads, close your ears for a second, $1,000 for department heads, for unbudgeted, 5,000 for manager, and then 10 for both of you guys.
Realistic.
For non-budgeted items.
Because you have things that come up.
But
That's-
but if it's not, and if it comes up and it's an emergency, these don't matter. But if
That's
it's
true.
non-budgeted and if
That's a good.
So,
point.
okay, so what you're talking about, David, is a non-budgeted, non-emergency item.
yes.
All
So,
right, so we need to differentiate.
Okay.
Well,
Right,
the
yeah.
emergencies are
Yeah.
accepted below, so they've
Yeah.
already, that's already.
Don't
say
covered.
that's it.
Yeah.
They don't.
It really is rare,
very rare.
yeah.
So 10.
So why are we
So
even
I'm
addressing
fine.
all
I'm
Then let's not
fine.
mess with
One,
that.
5, 10.
1, 5, 10.
Why even?
So
1,000 at the department head level. 5,000, I don't even know
Can I
if I want
suggest
that.
2,500?
Oh,
I think,
they ought to be able to
Currently,
handle
it's,
that.
It's currently 5.
it's zero.
Zero, right.
Currently, department heads have
Zero.
zero ability to, if it's non-budgeted.
so I think. Okay, so if we're doing 3 tiers again, right? Department head, I would say up to 2,500. City manager, up to 5, 2 signatures,
That's it.
Well, 2 signatures is 5, the department head and the city manager.
Okay,
Right,
but
so you're talking
you're right, but I'm not.
3
Three
signatures.
signatures, right? Because the
That would
first,
go to-
because budgeted purposes, we didn't really put a category for city, for department heads. We just went right to city
Well, it's
manager.
their budget. They're responsible.
I understand. So, yeah, so
So the department heads are
I
going
don't
from
like
0 to
10,000.
2,500.
I remember
But,
some
okay.
progress there. All right.
Okay, so why not go like 5, 2,500, 5,000?
20, 25, 5, 7,500 would make me happy. And then
So-
anything over
so what-
75.
You're talking
So
what?
for a non-budgeted purchase,
I'm
for,
with you.
for a department manager,
Oh, I know, I know.
$2,500 is a lot of money.
They can do it, but yeah, so I'm with you. I think
So
you
1,000,
just said
So
500
500
500.
$500?
for a department head for a non-budgeted purchase. Doesn't happen very often.
Doesn't have.
No?
Okay,
And then let's do,
You said 2,500 and 5,000. I mean,
yeah,
I think
okay, so
that's
500
reasonable on
department
these, and-
head, 2,500 city manager, 5,000 mayor,
Over, no, 25, so
up
500,
to
2,500.
5,000 mayor,
Yeah.
and then anything
Anything
over
over is
5,000 council.
council.
Oh, my goodness.
Before we
But
get,
again, this
Okay.
is, these are not.
before we get too far down the road.
Non-budgeted, non-emergency purchases.
Okay,
I just got a couple of questions.
Okay,
It's curly, but-
What could possibly go wrong with it? Okay, now, chief, do you ever have a time come up that you hadn't planned? That you hadn't budgeted? Where you have to do a prisoner transport, or you gotta send somebody someplace and you hadn't figured on it?
Yes, all the time, but I was just reading the definition of budgeted versus non-budgeted. And I believe that as long as I haven't expended past, for example, prisoner transport. If I have not expended past the total amount budgeted in fees for services, then I can authorize that transport. But if I have spent past it, that transport's $90, I'd still be able to do it because it's less than 250. Is that what you?
500.
500.
You'd be able
So-
to do it 5 times.
However, if there was a prisoner in DC that we needed to drive to or fly to get,
Right.
and I either wanted to send my own people or contract a prisoner transport firm, and I was already over that, that would be over 500, I'd have to ask or get emergency authorization from somebody.
For
Yes,
some
I
of
think
that,
that'd be
you
fun.
can
That sounds
contemplate
fine.
I agree. I
when
think
you
that's
enter
fine.
when you enter the person. You know, because they're gonna ask you if you're gonna come get them, right?
Yeah.
So you can contemplate that a little bit.
Now, the issue is going to be, could be, if my training budget is $8,000, which it is, and an officer resigns and I put somebody in the academy, I'll instantly use all of that and then some. But I would get permission to hire the person, because that's what I would do
Right.
anyways. And part of that would be the academy fee. The problem is, every single training fee I spend after that date would be over.
Yes,
Yeah,
So if there was a training that was more than 500, I'd have to get permission, most are not, so
we'd probably end up doing a budget amendment for you under those circumstances.
and then, yeah.
But if are they under 2,500? Your trainings,
Depends.
Oh, yes,
most of them are under
so
2,500,
it'd just
which
be a
means
city manager.
Luke and you can decide that, yes, you need to continue doing that,
Okay,
correct?
yes,
What
That,
happens?
that's, it's not, you can't do it, it's, you've up to 2,500, you have to get Luke, and then if it's 3,000, because you're sending 4 of them, then all of a sudden you get the mayor involved, and I think you're okay.
I think it's more than reasonable.
I think it'll work. And if it doesn't, then we'll complain and we can revisit.
Right, and then we revisit.
Right.
Right,
That's
Okay.
About a policy, right?
And what happens in June, for example, when people's budgets are running out? How does June work?
they need to budget better.
Correct.
April,
that is
April
what
and
we're
May
talking
is
about. Yeah.
usually a little bit more crucial.
because that's when we're doing the budget amendment. But the point still remains, yes, it gets a little
Right.
bit dicey towards the end of the year.
And we'll continue to micromanage at that point too.
And then we'll come back and we can revise.
Lost signal, but. Oh, we're back. Never mind.
So
Can I ask, I'm sorry, what's the unbudgeted amount that you're able to approve the city manager?
I would be able to authorize up to 2,500.
And then the mayor's up to 5. So you would have 5,000 without having to bring it to council.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of a tree that falls, damages property.
That would be an emergency
Emergency.
situation that would throw the numbers out,
Right.
in my mind.
I
I mean,
agree.
that's a health
well,
safety.
it may be an emergency,
Yeah.
right?
That might be.
Probably an emergency situation, which takes it out of the realm of both of these.
If it's
We
in the
haven't
middle of a
covered that
park,
yet.
not blocking traffic.
Right,
it's
no
okay.
big deal.
Yeah.
Right. On an abandoned house, probably not a big deal. On my house, big deal.
Blocking the road. It's gonna be a bigger, but that's, the- yeah.
All right, I feel like I have good direction here on how to address this section. The next one where we have, I feel like I have good enough direction. Does council feel comfortable with the direction you've given me?
That's
To move on.
I do.
Contracts. This is just hiring people for service related, not equipment. Would you like us just to plug in the same numbers here? Brian, this is one where I will say it's easier to keep track of the numbers if they're the same.
Yeah,
We'll use the same numbers.
I would think you would use the same numbers.
And could I would like the contracts to be reviewed and approved by the city attorney and not just submitted. And I don't know, I mean, for small, like boilerplate copier contract, Jim, it should take you like 5 minutes, right? I mean, it's boilerplate. Whoa. Just filling in the amounts, but some of the contracts, like for IT services or something, those are more involved, and I would like to know that Jim has reviewed them and approved them versus just, it sounds like it's kind of optional. It should be. I would like it to be.
Well, so number 2 there, the contract term is for more than 1 year. I think that should always go to council, don't you think?
Yes.
Yes.
No matter what the cost is.
And so when you guys say they should be the same, you're talking about the two, both the budgeted and unbudgeted should be the same number? Is that what you were saying?
The unbudgeted numbers are,
Should be the same.
for this is the same as the unbudgeted numbers and the. yeah,
Yes, okay, that makes more sense.
Okay.
Okay, yes.
Good question. Just gotta make sure it's clear.
So 2, we're saying
Over one,
always, if it's over a year, always comes to council.
I think so.
I agree. But 1.
Okay, but, okay, so is what type of a situation would occur for contract more than 1 year that you would need to enter into quicker than what?
this is where having Jean here would be much better than me, because I think she would think of the
Individual item.
examples.
I think she would say a renewal of a copier contract. Our copiers have exceeded their life, the contract's up, they're 5-year contracts. We need new copiers.
But in my mind, so this is me speaking as council member saying, I would say that I don't have a problem bringing that to council and taking the time to get 2 or 3 bids and saying, we're gonna stick with Infomax or whoever. And we're just gonna stay, I think that still needs to come to us
I
because
think
it's more than a year.
Yeah,
so.
I think so too, because there's, I'm thinking of, are there like emergency situations or more emergent situations that would require a faster response for 1 year? An office item, insurance, I mean, those things, I think, you gotta
Not
look
that are
ahead
more-
and I can't think of anything.
I can't, off the top of my head, I can't think of any type of a urgent situation
Right.
that would be longer than a 1 year.
That's good.
I mean, typically it's gonna be if, hey, there was flooding and we need to hire this engineer to come in and quickly analyze this. I could see some urgency there. But that's not a,
It's not a 1 year
that's
contract.
not a long term.
And if we
Between
decide
limbs.
we want it to be, then we authorize the short term and come back for the long term. I mean,
Or somebody authorizes a short term and it comes back.
Right, that's what I
Yeah,
meant.
okay.
Yes, that's what I meant. I didn't say it wrong. Yes.
Okay, so two main things, just to make sure I have this correct. One is we need to ensure that the contracts aren't just reviewed by the attorney, but are approved by the attorney.
Yes.
And you're talking about regardless of it coming to council or not,
All contracts should be reviewed by Jim. I
Okay.
think we talked about that years ago. that
which is,
we want
For
all
approval,
contracts.
yeah. Change review change it from review to approval.
Right,
I think
right.
That'll take
Agreed.
care of it.
so my question is, because we all get busy and we hound Jim all the time, he's a busy guy. My question would be, can we still put it on the council agenda if he hasn't given that staff person approval, the contract looks okay?
You can, because every meeting that happens, I say, Jim, did you actually see it and approve it?
So that's essentially what we are doing now. We've said, hey, this is gonna be on the agenda, we're submitting it to him, and then he's here to answer that question. So you're okay with that?
Yes, but just so you know, I'm not going to approve any contract unless I know the attorney, even if Jim wants to outsource it to somebody, an attorney has reviewed it on behalf of the city and approved it.
That seems,
I think that's good. And I think internally, if we want, I always have until 1 o'clock on Wednesday scheduled for city anyway. I could sit here after council meeting, so everyone knows, hey, if you got some little 1 minute review or 2 minute review, I'll sit here and wait. Okay.
and usually at like our department head meetings too, that's a good time.
That's department.
All right, so those two items, threshold's the same.
Right.
Yep. Over 1 year, must go to city council.
Yes.
Anything else in here that we need to work on or talk about?
Not right.
Okay,
What was the word, granted in?
I've got that
emergency?
written.
So
I've got that
that was-
written down.
You have the word that we want to use?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so those two
No,
items.
this,
threshold
this
the
is
same.
a rule, right?
I'm sorry, what was that?
This is a rule change we're doing, right?
So this is a policy. This will go on our policy manual. It's not a code
Vote on it one time, right?
Correct.
until we change it again and then you'll vote on
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, I know, but my
So are we
point
ready
is,
to make a motion?
well, just a minute.
Oh, okay. I thought that's where you were going.
My concern with it is that we may sit here tonight, we may think this is great stuff, right?
Right.
But tomorrow we might go, right? There's a tendency sometimes to micromanage. And we don't want to do that. We really don't want to do that. Okay, I'm not saying that's happening here. But what I'm saying is maybe we should take this rewritten policy. Maybe you should bring it back to us again for a decision. Maybe we should take a little time and regurgitate on it before we take a vote.
I'm requesting that you not vote on it tonight.
Yes, can I would entertain a motion to table this.
Okay, I would make that motion.
Or we can discuss it. So I got a motion by Cool, a second by Baker. Do we have further discussion? We can discuss.
I
this
just want
on
to
the
make sure
vote.
that everybody was done, because that's all I was concerned about, was everybody was done.
The only hesitancy is that we're gonna bring it
I
up
don't need to
again
go back
and we'll
and
restart
argue about it again.
regurgitating it for another hour.
I came to actually move on with it.
So
I would actually suggest we move on, and I don't know that you have to vote on it tonight because there are a lot of changes made, but it's one of those things I think you need to put into action and see how it works. And after, 3 or 6 months, city staff is going, this is insane, it's not working. Then come back and let us know how you would change it and what's not working.
I think there have been enough changes that we need to have it all written out so that we can read it again and then vote on it.
Yeah, and they need to give a little input, take a look at it in the meantime. Staff does.
Maybe next time Gene will be back.
right, and
Okay. What? Want to pass it as amended?
I would.
So the motion, so if
There's
If
a
we
motion
get
on the
no
table to
votes,
table
if,
it.
if we get no votes, then we can turn around and do the other one. So motion is to table. Motion by Cool, second by Baker. Lindsay, would you call a roll?
Councilmember Cool,
Yes.
Livingston.
No.
Lester,
No.
Baker,
Yes.
Reba.
Okay, so that motion fails. Anybody like to make a motion to approve the purchasing policy as amended?
I would.
Okay,
Stephanie seconds.
so I got a motion by Livingston,
I still.
second by Reba, right? Yeah, to,
Where did this end up?
to approve as amended. Do we have further discussion?
Just clarifying it. And the blue section's gone, correct?
Correct.
The section is gone. All are subject to review by the mayor is gone.
Right.
30 and 50. Are we
Good.
all familiar with what it actually is, since we don't have anything in front of us?
I believe I am.
15, 30, 50. 500, 2,500, 5,000, right?
Right.
Okay.
All right. Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Cool,
I'm awful tempted to vote no. In the interest of moving it forward, I'll vote yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Baker,
This is micromanagement. Drano, yes.
Reba.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Whew, now we get to go to B. We have a resolution authorizing 28E agreement for participation and funding of the Iowa Confluence Water Trail System between Iowa Confluence Water Trails Incorporated and the city of Norwalk, and nominating Councilmember Livingston to the Central Iowa Water Trails Board. So we've talked about this 28E at other meetings. I think it's a good idea for the city of Norwalk to participate in this. I know we have residents that would like to get out, canoe and kayak and all that stuff and get out on the water. And this would mean we would be providing and helping to provide a means to do that for them.
So we're committing to 5,000 in 1 year, correct?
Yes.
Correct. That would become an
And then-
annual,
Futures would be at 5.
correct. Unless the budget changes and it comes back, that's something that that board would review periodically. And there is an out clause in there. That's one of the first things that Jim always looks for, because you've asked him to. So there would be an out clause involved there. It just means you've got to wait, like, get through that fiscal
You're
year.
typically over your 2 years or whatever, you notify, and then you got 2 or 3 years, you're still, yeah.
Correct.
No, I just wanted to make sure that it's because it concerned me when they did their presentation and they had what our share would be potentially, and I was like, that was a lot of it. It was like 30 or 40,000 a year, and we didn't have one. So that's why I asked that question. Thank you.
Got anything else? Dave?
No.
Okay.
So I just want to clarify, because there were no dates in the draft 28. There will be, like, it'll say December 20th. It'll actually have a year in there when it terminates. Or it's. How does that work? You just, I think you just answered the question, but I just want to make sure you answered it the way I was expecting. So it'd be page. There's no page numbers. Item O, termination.
Oh. Termination.
So the agreement's gonna start. I just want to know when the agreement's gonna terminate.
I think the agreement
Goes
is,
on.
I think it's a perpetual agreement.
So where does that say that?
By not saying it ends.
Yeah, I think that's it. Let's see.
Well, if it doesn't end, then why is there a year ending?
That one is when you can end it by notification. Gives you a different, because if it's perpetual, they will not give you an option under O of being able to end it if you want to.
So that the year is left open because it's not 2022. It's If you want to terminate in 2023, you have with the year ending December 21, 2023. If you want to terminate in 25, you have the termination, the year ending December 31, 2025. That's why those.
Why did they put that 20 dash?
I think
All right,
that, I think they
never
will
mind.
fill that in
That's-
depending on
was
what
just what was
approval
confusing.
comes.
Okay.
Unless you want to terminate in like 2101, and then you have to have a revision to this.
Mayor, I do have one minor thing. The communities that are the non-access points that are at the $5,000 number, we collectively get a board seat.
Right.
So, and Jackie, I think I mentioned that to you. You're nominating Jackie. Ultimately, she might be chosen. It might be somebody else. I have expressed your interest in being a part of that to them, and that a formal nomination would come forward after council's action.
Any other discussion? Or public comment?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Lester, second by Livingston. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Livingston,
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Reba,
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
If I may, Mayor, section 2, subsection capital E is where it says it's gonna be perpetual. I know it was in there something.
Remember seeing it?
Yeah.
All right. Item 6C is a resolution approving police weapons conversion and disposal of property. So the PD wants to change their choice of service weapons, and I'll let you take it from here, chief.
Okay, so. We carried 40 cal. So we had some. You're going to shoot. Yeah, I did some stuff. Into. Converted. So. Choosing. In the department. And include. Straight into. Asking for permission from the county. So that's. Program. Questions?
Yep, so maybe silly question, but you use the term dispose to officers. So does the city, does the city police department have authority to sell weapons?
Yes.
Thank you.
Just a question for you, Chief. I didn't get to ask you earlier when we were talking. On the ammunition availability for the 9, are you gonna be able, are you confident you'll be able to get your hands on sufficient 9mm to implement?
There is a delay. That's easier. Slowly working stuff out.
Yeah, so it won't be the same round you're looking for off the shelf, but okay. All right, thank you.
Okay. Any public comment?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Livingston, second by Reva. Further discussion? Hearing none. Lindsay, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Lester,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Reba,
Yes.
Cool,
Yes.
Livingston.
All right, motion carries. Item 6D is a resolution approving memorandum of understanding with IAFF Local 5274 regarding temporary pay increases. Captain Porter, would you take this one?
Yep, thank you. So with the resignation of the fire chief, our full-time staff have taken on additional responsibilities, primarily some larger projects that they would not have been involved with otherwise. The union contract states that they can do acting pay. If a lieutenant is gone for 5 shifts, then the firefighter can receive acting pay with that individual being gone, taking on the additional responsibilities. So we feel like this is appropriate in this situation as well. So we created a memorandum of understanding with labor attorney, and the numbers and stuff are reflected here. Basically, we took the wages that are not being utilized with a resignation. As you can see in the resolution, it would affect our line item about by less than $5,000.
Questions this council have?
Of course, this will be an ongoing thing, right? We'll have this every year.
No, this would not
This
be
is
an
just
ongoing.
temporarily.
This is just temporary. This is just while we're searching to fill the chief's position, because they've helped take on some responsibilities, because I can't do it all right now. I'm trying, but I can't do it all. And so
Thank
this
you.
is just temporary. Yeah.
Thank you.
The acting, as far as like the union contract, that's the situations. We had a situation actually earlier where our lieutenant was injured. So while he was off, then we paid our firefighter acting pay during that time. So this is similar, but it wasn't exactly outlined in the contract.
Can I get a motion?
Second. Pick one.
You get to pick one.
Okay.
All right. Any further discussion? Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Baker,
Yes.
Reba.
Yes.
Cool,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Lester.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 6C is a resolution approving the site plan of Young and Company. So this site is located where the bread and breakfast, most recently Tacos Andreas was. Now they're going to tear down the existing building, which is good, and put up a new one. They're going to sit the building back a little further than the current building. Luke, I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, you're correct. Site is located on the east side of Highway 28. We did approve an IPUD for the site to set some specific setbacks for it to be able to have the building located as it's shown on the site plan. So it does meet those requirements. Parking wise, they're showing 13 stalls. They would be required to do 7, so almost double the requirement. There's also a landscaping plan shown in the site plan that shows the trees they'll put in the backyard. And there are architectural elevations that meet our architectural requirements as well. So happy to answer any questions.
Motion.
Second.
I have a question that has nothing to do with the actual plan. That's Young and Company.
I think that is their kind of development, like what they're doing as like their company that's developing the building. That they have Young and Company on the site plan elevations, but that was just there for illustrative purposes.
Yeah, they said that there would be an actual salon name and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay,
I asked about that.
okay, because I thought it was supposed to be a salon.
Yeah,
it is.
so there'll be a sign permit we'll take through at some point through the process and issue for it once they have the building built.
All right, so motion by Livingston, second by Lester. Any further discussion or questions?
Much celebration will be in order.
Yes.
Yes. Absolutely. Lindsay, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Riva,
Yes.
Cool,
Yeah.
Livingston,
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 6F. It's resolution approving the amended grading plan for Valley View. So last meeting, we had a lot of input for Cooper and Crawford on the preliminary plat for Valley View. One of the items that came out of that meeting was council approval for the grading plan. Luke, I'll let you take this one from here.
Sure, thank you. Cooper Crawford has gone back and worked on the grading plan for the direction of council at the last meeting. What they've resubmitted to us shows some reworking of the flat space in outlot Z to flatten that out a little more than it was before. We also met with Robin and I, and city staff met with Cooper Crawford to kind of go over that and discuss what Robin was envisioning for potentially happening in that space. And then that's kind of resulted in what they're proposing here. I also want to note, I included in the staff report just some information about the required parkland. I believe there's a discussion at council about it not having enough required parkland. I think there was some confusion in our staff report even about what amounts we required. Our subdivision regulations, when we approved them, we put in a grace period for where a developer could use the old regulations. And this prelim plat was submitted to us for review originally back in October. So they originally fell under that. It's taken them a while and a lot of review to get from that point to today. But we did want to make sure that we noted that it was meeting the parkland requirements as we've identified them to be needed through the code. Happy to take any questions. I know Kevin is here from Cooper Crawford. If you have some specific questions on the grading work that they proposed.
The bike path situation's been addressed.
Yeah, and I think, Robin, if you want to add anything from your perspective, but yes.
Yes, the bike path, we plan on that going north to south. We have openings up there on the north end, and we've talked to them also about the south end being able to have an exit point down there. So,
And then also the idea of, I think part of your comments, Ed, had been some of the on-street stuff being widened out to when it comes into that area as well. So, yep.
yes, we did meet, and so north on Wright Road, they do have they have a path there along the south side of Wright Road that they've added as well.
So at our last meeting, Brad stood here and told us that he would comply with the higher parkland agreement number. But yet they're not. Is that what I'm getting?
Correct. I would express my apologies for not being at the meeting to help clarify that in the meeting. I think that's something that was in the back of my head and I was not here
But you
to.
still agreed to it last time and didn't do it. That's all I'm trying to point out is.
I felt like he agreed to it because he believed that that was what he was bound to do. And I felt like we all said, yes, that's what you're bound to do. And that was in fact not what he was bound to do.
I agree with that.
Then the other piece of this grading plan is that it goes into the park. How much disruption does that do to the park? Ask because can they start grading whenever they want to, and then is it going to disturb the park and the uses of the park?
Yes, so I think their plan is, if you approve tonight, they will begin as soon as possible. They currently have snow fence up that is right at the base of the part that we currently do not use, and they are staying within that snow fence. Will there be construction while we are in the park using it for fall soccer and flag football? Yes, but we don't have any fields that are being shut down due to the,
So you say it's the part of the park that's not used,
it's up on the hill.
but I guess there's not fields up there, but you're saying the park's not, that part of the park's not used, and I don't agree with that either. I think that part of the park gets used quite a bit.
It gets used for unprogrammed space. Yes, I agree. But during our programming, we do not program that space.
And then why was there such a delay from October till July, August to get to this? I mean, it's 10 months. I mean, I understand they're facing that they're on the old rules because they got it to you in October, but that's 10 months is a long time to go through this, so.
The only thing I can comment on the timing of it is we went through and did our initial review and had several rounds of that. Took it to planning and zoning, and some comments out of planning and zoning resulted in us going back and doing some additional tweaking and working with them on things. And
When did it go to planning and zoning?
it was either February, March timeframe. So early spring.
So if they had waited another 6 months and didn't bring it back to us till next year, they would still fall under, I'm just trying to, this old versus new, I understand there was an exemption in there, but also, the
Yeah.
delays don't always seem to be flying.
You're correct. At some point, if somebody submitted something and then didn't actively work on it for so long, we'd probably say, you know what, you don't fall under that. With this project, I feel like we were actively doing reviews and having discussions back with Kevin and Cooper Crawford and the developer pretty much that whole time. I mean, there were some lags where we maybe had 2 or 3 weeks where we didn't get something submitted back, but I guess I can't comment on their timing of things and things, but I think we ended up with around 6 rounds of revisions on this project, and most of the time we end up with 2 to 3 on a project by the time it gets to you guys. So
Other comments from council? Questions? Comment? Motion?
Second.
Okay. Lindsay, I'll let you decide that one too.
Okay.
All right, any further discussion? Hearing none. Lindsay, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Cool,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Lester,
No,
Baker,
Yes.
Reba.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 6G is resolution authorizing execution of an agreement with Caliber Concrete LLC, Core Concrete and Serenity Wood Storage Building. So the garage floor out at Serenity Woods currently has, well, it's currently dirt. And Park and Rack, myself as well, believe that having the floor paved would be better for storage of our equipment out there. So this item sees to it that the paving gets completed.
what are we storing in there?
So we would store all of our attachments to our tractors. We currently have tractor attachments. In the wintertime, we'll store the tractor. We'll store mowers out there. Currently, our only storage facility is one bay in the blue storage shed, and our tractor gets stored outdoors at the sports complex. The other things that are in there right now are our ice rink. We have a sprayer that's out there.
So for storing, and that's all we're doing in there, why do we need to pave it versus the dirt floor? This is just me asking.
It just keeps the equipment cleaner. It's just allows us to take better care of our equipment.
Easier to keep nice and rodents out.
Well, and if you're inside working on it as well, you're not kicking up as much dirt. Anything else to add?
No, that's it.
Other discussion, questions you have for Robin?
How many square feet is it?
That I would do not know, is that, I can look it up. Did the quote get attached to that? Did I send that to you?
On the bid.
Underneath the second line of the calendar. 1,536.
We did receive 2 quotes on that. Caliber was the least expensive. The second quote we received was from Patava. And I think that was at least 2,000 more. I apologize, it did not, that piece of
Did
paper.
it include wet curing? I'm
I
asking that.
don't
because-
believe it does.
Okay. Because that's extra in the Caliber one, and
I-
that's why I'm asking.
I went through all of those with the Dakota to make sure that all of those exemptions were not going to come back.
Anything else? Can I get a motion?
Motion second.
All right, motion Livingston, second by Cool. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Livingston,
Yes.
Lester,
No.
Baker,
Yes.
Reba,
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 6H is a resolution authorizing execution of an agreement with Mid-American Pool Renovation Incorporated to replaster the Norwalk Aquatic Center. Robin, I'll let you take this one.
Okay, so this was an item that we did have budgeted through CIP. It was the original quote came in a little bit under the 65,000. I kind of bumped it up thinking with timing, the quote might come in a little bit more. Unfortunately, it came in 3,000 more than that. So the final quote is at 68,000. And I guess the current plaster in the pool has been in there for about 15 years. That is about the extent of what the plaster, life of plaster in the pool would be. Over the past couple of years, we have had to do some different cracks and things in the deep end, also where the 5-foot section begins, where we've had to get in there and kind of remove the plaster, fix the stuff underneath just from cracks and leaks. So it's kind of time to get that removed and get new plaster in there.
All right. Thank you. Any discussion or questions from council?
Do you have a timeline when they can do it?
Yes, they want to start the middle of September. So
Motion.
Second.
Okay, motion by Lester, second by Livingston. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Lester,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Reba,
Yes.
Cool,
Yes.
Livingston.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 6I is first reading of an ordinance amending section 9212, water shortage and chapter 177 rates and fees of the Norwalk Municipal Code. So this is a tweak to our water shortage ordinance to put it more in line with what we believe we need to do in the future during water shortages. Wayne, anything to add?
No, sir.
Any questions from council? Want to make a motion?
Second.
Motion by Livingston, second by Cool. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Baker,
Yes.
Reba,
Yes.
Cool,
Yes.
Livingston.
Yes.
Lester.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 7, council inquiries and staff updates. Jim? David?
I've got a list, I'm sorry. Okay, so some of the other things I want to discuss at some point again, so golf carts, ATVs, etc. It's been questioned by a handful of people, and then I have seen this vehicle driving around. And it has a license plate, however, it is a golf cart.
That white thing
Yes,
with the rounded.
it's a
There's
golf cart.
headlights and tail lights.
And so it's licensed and legal technically. It's got an Iowa license plate.
It does have a line.
Yeah. This is me saying, I know our officers have pulled over somebody else for an ATV that they were driving down the road on. And then I just think it's something that we need to discuss again.
I agree.
ATVs,
I'd like
golf
to get that
carts
on the,
squared away. Just
a
that's.
work
that's the
session or
work-
something.
I'd like to get a legal opinion on that bad boy.
First one's work session. I just,
Yeah, I agree.
it's growing and I think there's gonna be more of it, and over the amount of golf carts that I see parked up at 1908 Draft House in the evenings that don't have any way of getting there, because I doubt they're driving them across the grass other than driving across the road.
No, they
It's
have
just
a-
me.
No, they have a
There is a
path.
Is there a
path.
path there
There
now?
is a
I haven't
path.
seen the
There.
path, so there's
Yes,
a path
there
there.
is a path. That's all.
No, protective
Yes.
about
Since
that,
it
aren't we,
opened.
Baker?
It's open now. There wasn't. I know there wasn't, but I'm just saying that.
Yes.
There's been a path there since
Yes.
before it opened.
Yeah.
A
Yes.
gravel
Okay.
white rock path. You can see on Google Maps.
But I would tell you that the gravel white rock path does not fit our city code either and probably should be
It's
paid.
on
That's on
private
private
land.
property.
And then
It's
how
on
do you
private
get?
property.
And then it goes to the bike path.
So are several
how do you get
driveways, but
from the gravel path down to 1908.
We had an agreement, when we did this whole thing, we had an agreement with them that that it would be able to travel on that bike
Right, I
path
remember that.
along the road.
Right.
Yes,
this is why I think we need to discuss it to make sure that, I think we need to get something more uniform and make it easier for your officers as well to know what's legal, what's not. If it has a license plate, it still might be illegal in my opinion. If it doesn't have a license plate, it might be, I don't know, just, I think we need to figure that out.
It's interesting, he brought up UTVs yesterday at the department.
Well, that's one of the people that approached me was one that got a ticket recently, so.
right.
And they aren't a Norwalk citizen, by the way, but they approached me about it, and it's one that we may want to do some other discussions
All right.
with, just a heads up.
On the list.
Yes, food trucks, catering, food trucks, this is, I've said it for several meetings, bro. I think we need to fix something with that ordinance, because currently, if you bring in an out of city entity with a truck that's serving food that's licensed and registered with the state as a food, I remember the term, did you open that up? The terminology they use is like food mobile something or other. It's a food truck. And that's all it is. It's not a restaurant. They aren't catering. If you pay for it, you can do it on your commercial residence
Right.
yourself.
I can have my block party and a food
No.
truck. I can have a graduation party
No.
and a food truck.
No, you can't, because they're on residential properties. That's in the code as well. You can't do them on residential properties.
People have been doing it.
Yeah,
Anyway.
that's the problem, is that I think we need to square that away, and then I think we need to, as a council, come up with an agreement on what enforcement is. If it's the pizza thingy sitting out there and your officer drives by at 7 o'clock on Friday night, they stop and tell them you have closed because you're not licensed and authorized to be here. I think that needs to be, we need, as a council, need to agree that that's what needs to happen.
So if, like, I know in some neighborhoods, people have a birthday party for their children and then they invite this pizza truck or this ice cream truck to come that's sitting in the street. So that's what you're targeting? That's what you're objecting to? Or
No, I'm
wanting
saying
to
that that's
clarify?
not legal in our code currently.
Right.
That's not legal in our code. So I think that we should be telling our officers, telling these people, number one, they're not registered.
So
Number
we need to
two,
adjust our code or enforce the violation.
we either need to adjust the code or start enforcing it, because we're well beyond the time frame, and everybody's been notified. Or there's the one that sits out at the bar in Arilla. It's a pizza thing and they sit out there 3 nights a week. They still haven't gotten registered. I know that. Do we still only have one?
So what we've done on that front was we have contacted each one of them, provided them with a copy of our permit and said, here's the rules. You're operating in town, you need to be licensed. We did that about 2 weeks ago. Elliot, our planner, did that. He's been on vacation, so our kind of thought was we'll give them the time that he's gone. And when he gets back, we're gonna circle back and say, hey, no kidding. This is your last warning, fill that out and get licensed.
Oh, I think we're beyond giving them the last warning at this point.
I think
personally,
he
but
can,
that's-
Jim, I believe that he can give the list, but if this is not on the agenda, so we should not be discussing.
Yeah, we can't
Just-
discuss it.
Just so you know, I think it's something we need to have.
We
Yes.
probably need a work session.
Um,
Correct.
detention pond behind Capital City Fruit. My understanding is we're required to put one back there under the agreement we did with them, and that should have been there like 8 years ago or 7 or 8 years. It's been a while.
Yes.
I think it's time we get that done. And I know we're trying to engineer it with this big one. We said, in my mind, there's gotta be a deadline. If this big one's not gonna happen, we've gotta get that one done. We're well beyond our time frame as a city. This is the city not doing its responsibilities, and this is me as council person saying, we need to fix it. We need to fix the city's responsible for this. Let's get it done. For just the capital city one, not the big one, just the capital city one. I think we need to get it done.
Well, we can
What else we
discuss
got?
it, but
No, we can discuss it.
We're as a city obligated already to
know.
do this, so
I
we've
know.
got to get it done. I mean, but I think we need
Right.
telling you, we need to get that figured out. We need to have a drop dead date of if this big one's not gonna happen, we've got to get the small one done and be done with it.
If the big one's not gonna happen, we need to do the small, yes.
But we need to have a time frame on it, because we can't keep saying down that, we're gonna do it and done. It's gotta be fixed and done. So this one popped up tonight. I was walking, parked alongside the road by the park, and there's no sidewalk. But the sidewalk just ends right where Holland Point's, is it Holland Point? Is that the name of it?
Yeah, Holland Point.
Holland Point, the name of the senior development or senior center. The sidewalk just ends. Robin, you may want to throw that one on yours just to look at and see if there's something that, whether it's, working our way down or
Is it
it's
Holland,
just a bizarre
Holland Farms or Holland Point?
Holland Farms.
You're talking on the north side
Holland
of
Farms,
Turnberry. On the north side of Turnberry.
Yes, on Turnberry.
Yes, the where it
It's our
stopped.
ground. It's the city's ground that doesn't have it, but the sidewalk just ends. It's really bizarre. I didn't notice it till tonight. I was
Yeah, they have a sidewalk that goes to their property line, and then it's City Park on the west side of, or east side of Turnberry, technically City Park, and there's no city sidewalk there yet. We didn't, as part of Holland Park, put a sidewalk up.
And then my last one, and this is purely, you guys can take it how you want to, but I'm irritated with us saying that we're gonna own a city facility and we've already settled on where it's going and haven't explored other options. And I think there's other options close by that may fit that ground for this sports complex. This is me just saying, we're building a city facility and we've set where it's going without actually exploring other places, in my opinion. So I think we need to do that. I think we're gonna be wasting city dollars to buy from that developer at the rate that he seems to be pushing things at. So. Anything else? That's it. Okay.
So finally, an Iowa wrestler, and first time in a couple decades, won Olympic medal. Yay. And Kosovo won their judo. Won Olympic.
Yeah, all right.
And
Don't mess
that's all
around
I
with
got,
those folks.
right?
step back, step back.
All right.
It was fun this week. We cut a bunch of ribbons this week, new businesses this week, more jobs, money in town, pretty positive stuff. I'd like to thank our economic development team. And more than that, I'd like to thank the staff. Because I had the opportunity to visit with people that did those things. And they complimented us, all those individuals, on the ease of working with the city staff. And how nice it was to bring a project here. And that's a pretty good reputation to have, a reputation we want to keep. So I just wanted to offer my gratitude and thank you, and the illustration of what's going on out there tonight.
Not much, just wanted to note, building permit numbers through July were 199 for single family and townhomes. We were like 254 last year for the whole year, so we've got 5 months to go. And we're getting close to it, so. Lots of stuff going on. That's all I've got.
That's enough. Wayne,
Nothing tonight?
all right, Captain Porter,
Yeah, I don't have anything either. Thank you.
all right, Chief Staple.
Just two quick things. Dare golf tournament was last Friday. We changed locations down to Shady Oaks and outside Indianola, and it went real well. And it occurred to us that if we change the title of that DARE to DARE Tournament and Youth Activities Tournament, then some of the money that we have that doesn't go to DARE, because DARE isn't, we make more than the DARE program requires, and we can use that money to help fund Norwalk kids at the Kosovo camp once we get that all back and running. So I figured out a revenue stream for that. And then the MPD Life program debuted last week also on Wednesday. That was a fabulous time for 14 of our youths at Twin Flower Park. Lots of help from Parks and Rec to get that set up and running. And all the effort from Officer Dunlap, it was her idea, and she ran through it start to finish. And just it worked out real well. So that's all I got.
And thank
You
you
know,
to
Chief,
Trosno.
Real nice article in the paper today, in the little local paper.
Yep, I saw it. And I'll give credit to that article to Judy Corcoran, who wrote it for us.
Yeah, did a good job. Did a good job. And now that you brought up the DARE golf tournament, it was pretty tight competition down there, but the city was well represented.
Yes.
That's all.
And one team was less thirsty than another team.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Ollie.
Thank you, Ed, for the kind words. It was an exciting week, welcoming all of these new businesses, whether it was their grand opening or ribbon cutting, and just seeing the fruits of everybody's labor and getting these projects up and running. Because during this last, I'm not even saying the C word anymore because I'm so over it, but just this last year of craziness for developers and business owners and landowners, and how hard it is for everybody to develop and do business and the environment that's happening right now. And this last year, it's just, yes, very exciting to see that it's still moving forward, making a lot of really good progress still in Norwalk Central. It's coming along really nicely. We had our first round of actual draft development agreement with the landowners going between myself and Luke and Jean to tidy that up before we bring it back to you guys. And then on Monday, we'll have one for Sportsplex. Oops, I guess that just 5. No, people know about them anyway. But it is really exciting right now with that project, because there are all of these national, even international companies that are taking notice of what's happening with this project, especially with the sports developer, and wanting to come in as really large investors and really large players in this entire development. So it's growing, it's getting steam, it's just really exciting. So that's going really well. Kosovo trip, we're all really hoping that we actually get to go on it. Who knows now with the new viral stuff coming out, what'll happen, but we have fully refundable tickets. So God forbid we can't go, then we're okay, but we're going to hope, because this police initiative, this national police initiative that they're working on, that they want Norwalk to be kind of the leader in, is really important. We've been finding out lately from the consulate that the country over there really wants to kick that off and have us be the leaders. So no pressure on Kirk, but it's kind of a big deal. So other than
You'll be
that,
just fine. If
yeah.
he gets a passport.
Yep.
Yeah.
And me. But yeah, I just got some really exciting news this week too, just about different businesses getting ready to move into an expansion phase. Have an exciting project coming in a marketplace. So things are good right now. Again, now I always have this caveat of this world pandemic, but we're going to move forward. So it's all good.
All right. Thank you. Jean.
Just real quick, we are transitioning from summer activities. Our summer reading program is completed and we're finishing all of that up and transitioning into back to school time. And so we'll be doing a library card sign up push and also continuing the online homework help. So we're looking forward to that. That's it.
Thank you. Robin.
I don't have anything.
All right. Lindsay.
I should say for Jean, the auditors were here this week. They are done in the sense that they aren't coming back to the building, but they'll be working on it again tomorrow remotely and part of next week. But they said everything looked really good so far and complimented our organization.
All right. Stephanie.
Nothing.
All right.
I wanted to say, the DARE tournament, I have been involved in quite a few golf tournaments over the years, and it was one of the best organized for its size, and it was just really well run. And Lily, with the prizes and stuff that she was able to get, it was just real impressive. They did a real good job organized.
I agree.
I only have one item. The Des Moines Waterworks, they do an academy, kind of like you've done a police academy. They do an academy through Waterworks, and they sent that out to us. And I just thought I'd pass that along to all the elected officials or any staff that might be interested in participating in something like that. If you do, let me know and I'll get you in contact with the right people. That's all I have.
Good, okay, thank you. Did I bring up ash trees last time?
Yeah, you did. Do it again.
Somebody said something about ash trees. I don't remember.
So, okay. So just to let you know, if you drive around, you can tell the effects of the emerald ash borer quite a bit this year, more so than I think other years. We're starting to do some communication out to residents to say what their responsibility for the tree is, and if it dies, if it becomes a nuisance, then they're gonna have to take it down. Probably need to take it down anyway, but we're trying to get out in front of it so that they have some time to plan and actually get it down, so it's not a hardship. Because we don't want to go to their houses and say, you gotta take your tree down. Or we'll do it for you and then assess you for it. So see, be aware that that's coming out and you might get some questions about it. No community chat a week from Saturday, because I'm gonna be out of town and Jackie's gonna be at a wedding. Other than that, that's all I have. So we'll go to item, I guess it's item 8. Item 8 is a closed session pursuant to Iowa Code 2151C to discuss strategy with counsel in matters that are presently in litigation or where litigation is imminent, where its disclosure would be likely to prejudice or disadvantage the position of the governmental body in that litigation. So Jim, is this valid reason to go into closed session?
Yes, it is.
Can I get a motion to go into closed session? Motion by Livingston, second by Reva. Lindsay, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Reba, Cool,
Yes.
Livingston, Lester, Baker.
That's what the sign of getting them moved. I exercise my views at any
Get out of
time.
here. So take 5.
They hurt.
Minutes for a restaurant.
Take 5.